This video was brought to you by my loyal patrons. Pledge today and receive exclusive perks. Link in the description. A little over a month ago, I made a video revealing I own the prop of Patrick the Cement Truck. I started that video with a rundown of his history as a character, to familiarize the audience with him. I deliberately wrote that video in a way to throw people off, to make you all think it was a character analysis video, only for it to comically halt halfway through when the prop itself was revealed. I had a lot of fun with that video, and I was surprised by the amount of people who said they loved the history section of it. Many of you expressed interest in a whole series like it, spotlighting the Glup characters in Thomas, a sort of bite-sized form of Sodor's finest, if you will. And I love that idea, because when else would I ever have the opportunity to talk in depth about nobodies like D261 or Neville? And this all actually ties in with a video that I was brainstorming on recently, a sequel to Thomas's Most Bizarre Characters, a video where I took some of the strangest engine designs in the series and proposed alternate prototypes for them. One of the characters that was going to be in that sequel video was Timothy, the oil-burning engine. You may remember him. He was introduced in Tale of the Brave, and appeared a sparse couple of times before taking his leave into the void. And the more I researched alternate prototypes for him, the more I realized I actually had quite a lot to say about this character, to the point where his section started to dominate the whole script. So I figured I should save what I had to say about him and use it for the first episode of this new Spotlight series. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you all the first actual episode of Sidetracked, a new series on the channel where we analyze not just the Glup of Thomas and Friends, but all the underused or long-forgotten characters, and have a discussion about them.
Hey! Stop! Wait! Oh! The cars aren't pulling you, Timothy! Timothy?
Timothy is a CGI series character, and made his debut in the 2014 movie Tale of the Brave. He was introduced like this, as a victim of one of Bill and Ben's tricks, which perfectly sums up his role in the show. Timothy is the previously unseen third engine that works for the Sodor China Clay Company, after Bill and Ben. Bill and Ben's main job is transporting wagons of clay to the docks, while Timothy is most often kept at the clay pits, which explains why we've never seen him prior to this. Timothy's job is sorting wagons about the mines, moving empty ones in place for Marion the steam shovel to load up, and hauling the loaded ones away. I remember when Timothy was new, some fans compared him to the likes of Edward, Boko, Salty, hell, even Fergus. The common question most of us had was, why do Bill and Ben need another character to mainly associate with, when all these guys exist? I understand that line of thinking, but I would argue that Timothy brings something to the table that the likes of Edward or Boko don't. Timothy isn't really that bright. In fact, he's quite gullible, and serves as the twins' punching bag, someone that they can take advantage of on a regular basis. While Timothy is well aware of Bill and Ben's mischievous ways...
Wait a minute, is this one of your tricks?
No, not at all! No, not a trick!
he does still quite often fall prey to them.
Oh, okay then.
As explored in Season 18's Timothy and the Rainbow Truck. The pair managed to send Timothy on a wild goose chase across Sodor in search of an alleged rainbow-colored truck. Why did they do this? Well, simply because they could, and they found it funny. That's just how Bill and Ben are. Timothy is usually the butt of their jokes, because they know that they can take advantage of him. They'd never get away with this behavior with Edward, Boko, Salty, or Fergus. The two don't really respect Timothy, and whenever they fall into a pickle or can't explain something, it's always Timothy's fault.
Now I can even hear what you're dreaming, Ben. That wasn't my dream, Bill. Must have been Timothy's dream, then. Oh, that's Timothy.
Fine, be like that. But if the clay pits are a big mess when you get back, you'll know whose fault that'll be. Timothy's.
They never take responsibility for their actions unless they're forced to, because it's easier just to blame Timothy, right? Despite his naivety, Timothy seems to understand that the twins are young though, and most of the time doesn't let them get to him. He actually sees the funny side of their tricks sometimes.
You have to admit, though, that was a funny one. Cars can be troublesome, but they don't usually have that much pull.
Though sometimes, like all of us would, he does find it all a bit tiring.
But Bill and Ben's jokes can get to anyone eventually.
He is good-natured, and even after being pranked or mistreated by the twins, he will still step up and help them out in times of need. He's a kind soul, just not the sharpest tool in the shed. Timothy is an oil burner. While Bill, Ben, and Marion all burn coal, he runs on oil. That's his whole gimmick as a character. He wasn't the first to have this gimmick though. It was actually the logging locos who were the token oil burners of the series.
Oil? Not diesels?
No, but we use oil and wood for fuel.
But they all got sent to the Shadow Realm once McHugh and Brenner took over, leaving that gimmick open for a new character. I imagine the idea of making Timothy an oil burner was so he could have a uniquely different trait that Bill and Ben could pick on him for, something the writers could use to create stories exploring ableism. And indeed they did, for this was spotlighted in Season 18's No Steam Without Coal. Bill and Ben put Timothy down for being different.
You and your oil-burning ways. You're the odd one out. Not like us. We burn coal. And we're not boring.
Only to foolishly use up all their coal. Timothy being different comes in handy, and he steps in to save the day, delivering their wagons for them. Realistically, of course, a company only having one of its engines oil-fired while the others all use coal is a little maddening, to say the least. There's no real logic there within the show's universe, but I'm going to dive more into that later. Timothy's final major appearance was only one season later, in Season 19's No Help at All, a story that brought him out of the clay pits to work at Brendam Docks with Porter. This episode tied in with another episode earlier in the season, Salty All at Sea, which saw Salty be sent off to the mainland for a while. With him gone, work piles up at the docks, and another engine was needed to help. And at the end of the episode, we see Salty return. I love the strong continuity of this era, when standalone episodes had little elements within them that connect to others.
But Emily is at the Steamworks, and Mavis is at the Diesel Works.
It really shows that the writers actually gave a f*** and put in the extra legwork to make sure that things were consistent. It was a pretty novel idea to pair Porter and Timothy up of all characters. Two total nobodies that no one thinks twice about. Both have been victims of Bill and Ben's body shaming. Previously, they made fun of Porter for having multiple domes.
Watch where you're going, Bumpy Boiler. Bumpy Boiler. Because of his 3 domes.
I guess I am a bumpy boiler.
But Porter laughed it off. Water off a duck's back, as he put it. It's something in common that the two share, and both being together away from the little demons is probably why they enjoyed their time together so much, and why Timothy was in no hurry to get back to the clay pits. After this, though, Timothy disappeared into the void, as did Bill and Ben for a bit. The Clay Pits gang popped up for a brief moment in The Great Race during a song, and again in Big World Big Adventures, also during one of the songs.
Or try to climb a mountain and be stuck up on a ridge.
Behold, the final appearance of Timothy, a second-long cameo. I wouldn't really categorize Timothy as a glup shitto like I would someone like Patrick or Neville. He had a decent number of appearances that explored his character, which made his abrupt disappearance from the show after season 19 a bit jarring. But I think I can understand why. Timothy stopped appearing because Bill and Ben stopped appearing. Timothy is what's called a satellite character, someone who is intrinsically tied to a much more major character, and used as a foil to explore stories about them. Every single one of Timothy's stories surrounds actions taken by Bill and Ben that kick things off. So once they stopped using Bill and Ben, there was no point in using Timothy either. And they already did an episode exploring Timothy separated from the twins. So at that point, they probably figured there wasn't really that much more to do with him. Bill and Ben did return later on during the big world seasons, with entirely new voice actors, but their connection to the clay pits was pretty much severed. They always popped up at Brendam Docks or somewhere on the main line. I don't think the clay pits appeared at all in these seasons. And thus, neither did Timothy. Let's talk character design. Timothy is painted in a dark blue with red lining, with large yellow SCC lettering on his tank sides. This could be somewhat of a nod to Season 17's Bill or Ben, when Sir Topham had the twins temporarily repainted into new liveries to differentiate one from the other.
I like the new colour, Ben. It really suits you. Suits you too, Bill.
The plan, of course, did not work, and both Bill and Ben left the steamworks matching each other again. The livery they wore here was also a very similar dark blue, with large yellow SCC lettering. The only major difference was their lining was orange instead of red. While probably not intentional, it's fun to think that maybe this dark blue is sort of an official alternate livery for Sodor China Clay, and maybe explains why Timothy wears it. The engine Timothy is based on is an odd one. It was one of several oil-fired contractor engine designs by the Bell Locomotive Works in New York City. Timothy is one of the open cab 040 designs, with covered wheels, and the ability to be regauged, making it desirable for cramped work areas like city road construction and subway tunnel maintenance. They also proved useful in other areas around the world, in quarries, brickyards, and of course, clay mines. It is a well tank engine, giving it a much desired low center of gravity. For some reason that I can't really explain, the CGI modelers gave Timothy a saddle tank around his boiler, which he doesn't need, because his water is stored in a tank under his boiler, and oil in the tank on his rear end. Considering this was a design that was sold all over the world, it's peculiar that there's so little information about this specific engine class. As far as I know, this is the only photo of this particular design that exists, at least online. How? Just how did the show crew find this engine? Surprise, surprise, I take some issue with Timothy's prototype. I know, shocker, right? So I thought it might be fun to explore some alternate options. So let's do a little research, and then I'll dive into my own alternate universe headcanon for him. So what exactly do I take issue with regarding Timothy? I think the engine they chose is just way too obscure a choice to make sense, at least in a realistic take on the character. I mean, an American export isn't unheard of in the UK, but as far as I know, none of these engines made it to Britain in real life. I'm also probably the only person in the whole world who was bothered by the show giving clearly American engines British accents.
There's a big order to send to the docks, so you'll all be burning lots of coal.
Again, they specifically chose an American prototype for him, so why does he have a British accent? Timothy's whole gimmick is being an oil burner, so my assumption is the show crew stumbled across this engine while researching oil burners. And I figured, surely there must be some less obscure British examples of oil burners that they could have used instead, right? Well, as I discovered, there's not as many as you think. Through my research, I discovered that oil-burning tank engines were not that common a thing in the UK, though a couple examples did exist. The first example I found was an engine of the Great Eastern's T-18 class. The Great Eastern's oil gas works in Stratford closed in 1885 due to the oil market crashing. The railway had to make use of all the excess oil, so James Holden retrofitted one of the T-18 class, number 281, to burn oil instead, it gaining an oil tank on its rear bunker. This experiment was a success, and it became the first of roughly 60 engines on the Great Eastern's network that were later converted, all of which were tender engines, including the Claude Hamilton class, aka Molly. Fun fact, despite Molly being clearly a coal burner, they actually gave her an oil burner tender. The oil tenders were more rounded. I guess Molly was canonically one of the oil burning examples at some point in her life. The second engine I found was Great Western number 101, a unique one-off experimental open cab 040. You probably recognize this. Hornby used this for their rather famous 040 in 1978, and they still produce it to this day in a variety of liveries. This engine was built in 1902 as an oil burner, and was intended to be used for light passenger duties, though it never had the chance to. The oil burning experiment wasn't successful, and it was riddled with technical issues. It was rebuilt into a traditional coal burner in 1905, and was kept at Swindon Works as a shunter until being scrapped in 1911. Not a very long life. Like the Great Eastern, the Great Western continued to experiment with oil burning, though it was all carried out on tender locomotives, not tank engines. There may be some other obscure examples that I'm not aware of, but this is all I could really find. While I didn't find an engine that I felt suited Timothy all that well, it wasn't exactly a dead end. There was a takeaway from these. All examples here were converted. 101 was converted to coal firing, and 281 was converted from coal burning to oil. So as far as I'm aware, any engine could technically be converted to oil burning if necessary. So that opened some doors. The next thing I researched was the main inspiration for Bill and Ben, Alfred and Judy of English China Clay, which served the Port of Par in the south of England. One of the company's earliest engines was a Manning Wardle 040 E-Class, which they named Punch, after the Punch and Judy puppet shows. In 1932, Punch was heavily rebuilt into this contraption, with its saddle tank mounted sideways on its front. It served the line until the first of the Bagnall twins arrived in 1937 and was scrapped. The first Bagnall was named Judy to continue the Punch and Judy theme. I actually really like the idea of making Timothy a Manning Wardle type, mirroring Sodor China Clay's real-life inspiration. And then I remembered something else, where the clay pit is located on Sodor. It's at the end of Edwards Branch Line, which was previously the Wellsworth and Sudbury Railway. And the Wellsworth and Sudbury canonically had 2 Manning Wardle tank engines. Granted, they were 060s, but still, you can probably see where I'm going with this. This got the wheels turning. Here's my personal headcanon for Timothy. Timothy is an 040 open cab saddle tank engine designed by Manning Wardle, built circa 1903. Canonically, the Wellsworth and Sudbury Railway had 4 known engines that worked the railway, all 060s. Timothy was an additional 5th loco, and he was brought over to help out with the construction of the line to Brendam Docks when they extended there in 1904. The Northwestern Railway formed in 1914, absorbing the Wellsworth and Sudbury. The other engines all worked the Northwestern for a short time, before eventually being sold off or scrapped. All except Timothy. The little 040 was kept at Sleepy Brendam for many years, proving useful for shunting work and running the occasional light freight up the line when needed. Working at a harbor surrounded by trucks and people and livestock, Timothy eventually gained tramway skirts to cover his wheels, which wasn't uncommon for engines in industrial areas. Things all changed in 1948 when clay was discovered in the hills north of Brendam. The Sodor China Clay Company formed, and Timothy was put to work helping to construct the line to it. He was brought to the pits by lorry and helped construct the line to the harbor yard from there. Eventually, Bill and Ben arrived and took charge of the line. They were numbered 1 and 2, and Timothy never received an official number. He was kept at the clay pits to sort the wagons. Timothy never really leaves the clay pits that often, not because he doesn't want to, but because he physically can't make it into the docks. He's too tall to fit under the low bridge on the line that Bill and Ben were designed to clear. Now, to be fair here, the books were not consistent with this low bridge rule. Thomas was somehow able to make it to the drain in Down the Drain, which implies the bridge is on the line somewhere outside the harbor, and Bill and Ben in that same picture are pulling full-height brake vans from the clay pits. They do the same in Edward's Exploit too. Where is this stinking bridge at? If anyone knows of an actual explanation for this, comment it below. So I think that's a pretty sound backstory for old Timothy, right? But what about his whole gimmick about being an oil burner? Well, I came up with an explanation for that too. I'm going to take a note from number 281 for this next part. There is an oil works near Brendam. It was one of the industries that the Wellsworth and Sudbury wanted to capitalize on, and helped influence their decision to extend the line to Brendam in the first place. The oil market dwindled during the Second World War, and the works found itself in financial strain in the late 40s. The works sold its excess oil to the highest bidder, which was the nearby Sodor China Clay Company. They figured that they could use the oil surplus for all their machinery, including Timothy. Timothy was modified with an oil tank on his bunker and became an oil burner. Now, you may be wondering, why would the clay pits convert Timothy to oil and not Bill and Ben? It's a bit of a stretch, I admit, but the workaround is clear as day in Timothy's actual episode. Bill and Ben do the regular runs from the clay pits to the docks, while Timothy, meanwhile, stays put at the clay pits. Bill and Ben can refuel on coal at Brendam's local coal bunker, so there was no real need to convert them. With this explanation in mind, I recognize that Timothy could literally be any engine, but I like a Manning Wardle type for him simply just for that port of power connection. It also makes sense to me that the company would not be adverse to temporarily converting their already ancient engine to oil burning, rather than spending however much to import a hand-me-down from America that'd only be of use to them until the oil supply ran out. Quite a bit more cost-effective that way. I'm also aware that I'm not the first person to suggest making Timothy a Manning Wardle type. Tyler Black 5 made his own take on Timothy as a P-class specifically, which looks very smart. And that is about everything I think I can talk about regarding Timothy. We explored his usage in the show, his design, his basis, and even developed an alternate universe take on him. He's admittedly a charming character. He's not especially important or necessary, but a likable presence, and a handy tool in developing stories about Bill and Ben. I like him, and I'd like to think that if Bill and Ben for some reason return in the next iteration of Thomas and Friends, Timothy will return with them, though I know that probably isn't likely. But hey, I enjoyed the little time that we did get with Timothy, the little oil-burning engine. Keeping with the theme of making TV characters work in the more realistic Railway Series universe, I'd like to spotlight the work of Rexeljet, who has made some really interesting videos explaining his headcanons for TV characters and drawing artwork for them. He's done quite a few of these, so I'll recommend the first of this series, drawing characters from the TV series in the Railway Series style. His headcanons are very well thought out, and the stylized drawings that he's done to accompany them are very charming. He's nailed the different looks of each of the book illustrators, and watching the drawings all come together is super satisfying. Go give him a watch. I'd also like to shout out another video, because it's recently come out and I want it to rack up as many views as it can. Sir Handel in Live Action by the one and only Tallyclin Railway. This is the first ever recreation of a Thomas story done with real trains. Actual trains. The Tallyclin Railway came together and filmed this recreation of Sir Handel using the actual Sir Hayden as the title character. The story uses archived narration from Audrey himself, it has an original score, and there is so much clever editing here. It's truly a milestone in what can be done in our community. Who says a live-action Thomas movie can't work? This is proof right here that it can. Go check this out if you haven't, and keep that view count climbing. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this first episode of Sidetracked. I hope it's along the lines of what you might have hoped a Glup Shido Spotlight series from me would be like. Unlike Sodor's Finest, these videos are much shorter and easier to produce, so I'm hoping I can put these out a bit more often, at least when I feel like overanalyzing a nobody from the show. And also pending how well this video does view-wise. So tell me below, who would you like to see next in this series? I asked this before, and there seemed to be a lot of love for Neville and D261 specifically. Keep in mind, I'd like to keep this series open to any tertiary character, really. It doesn't have to be just a one-episode wonder. It could be for any non-major or recurring character. Anyone who you'd think wouldn't really fit the bill for a full-on Sodor's Finest. Tell me what you all think. So a quick update on Flying Scotsman's USA Tour video. In case you missed me talking about this in the last video, it was taken down from YouTube due to copyright issues. The video has been re-uploaded to my Patreon, and it is free to watch there for anyone. I think it'll live there for the time being, because I want to eventually redo the whole video with a new script, better audio, and editing. So it's not gone. Link to my Patreon is below. I've gotten a ton of comments recently asking me about a layout video update. And I'm sorry to say that not much has happened with it in the past couple months. We've been doing a lot of house repairs this year, and the garage has kind of been our storage space while everything gets moved around, as you can see here. The layout's all still there in one piece, and hopefully soon I can get back to working on it. So there will still be a bit of a wait. Sorry, folks. And that is all I have for you today. I hope you all enjoyed this video, hope you have a great day, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.